It's an impromptu recording of Circle of Trades. I'm Todd Studer. This is Travis Waldstein. Just popped in to say hi, dropped some stuff off at the studio, and said, "Hey, should we sit down and do a podcast?" Yeah, that'd be
Why
cool.
not? So there you see, you got nothing better to do today. So,
Yeah, that's it.
Eat ho-hos and ding-dongs and hang out and talk
Oh,
to,
the days
talk
when
to
I could eat
Carly
that
all
stuff.
day, you know. So
I miss those days of being able to eat ho-hos.
So there you go. So, but anyway, don't fear to stop in. We do podcasts usually on Tuesdays, but I just got back from Texas. I had a painless trip to Texas, so which was a good thing, and lots of stuff going on. Put a septic tank in this morning, and so it's been exciting times around the shop.
Already? You put a septic tank in already this morning?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're doing a new house remodel for a customer. I took a 5-minute video of this 2,000-gallon tank being dropped in the ground this morning. So. Yeah, this is great. We're gonna do the laterals, get inspected next day or two. So, pretty happy with how that's going so far. So,
2,000 gallons, is that normal size?
No, it's usually bigger than average. A lot of your stuff is, 1,000 to 1,500 gallon on average. So, both the bigger houses with the bigger rooms are requiring 2,000. Actually, you're starting to see some places now where they want a 2,500 gallon septic tank, which, listen, I mean, that's a big septic tank. So, it doesn't mean you have to have a ton of lateral, but you have to have enough capacity for the, the bedrooms and whatnot, for, capacity to be able to handle the amount of waste, for lack of better words, that a house that size can use. So,
well, that makes sense. We had in the little town that I grew up in, there was no citywide septic system. Everybody had, their own.
Yeah.
And it was apparently the laterals were all wrong, but this house goes back over 100 years. So
there's probably a chance they run out to the county ditch. That's the one in the back of his day. And I know people, and I'm not going to say who or where, but it's not in Pot County where I know these people. But that they have, lateral lines, or they're like a lateral line running from the backside of the tank or 55-gallon barrel or whatever they have in the ground out to a county ditch. It unfortunately it happens, if you know what I'm saying.
I do. All the way to Texas. You drove, right?
Yes, I had to fly.
And I've done the drive. I've actually gotten into the panhandle of Texas. I don't know how far in you were going, but It is mind-numbingly boring.
Yeah.
That trip.
It can be. Well, like I said, I went to Dallas, and I could damn near do Dallas in my sleep. It's like going to Iowa City. I can pretty much do that one in my sleep. I know the trip.
Dallas is farther than Iowa
Yeah,
City.
Dallas is further than Iowa City. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, went down there. We had franchise beans. They have a deal called Homecoming every year. Last year I stayed for an hour and left. So this year I stayed for the entire deal. So
were they happy that you stayed for the entire
that depends on who you talk to, whether they're happy or not. So I did come back with a couple of words. Of course, one of them I busted in the parking lot, loaded into my truck, but which is kind of funny in its own right. But I won a market penetration award, which I've known for years, and then the company won, and then we made their top 10 again as far as business goes. So, of course, they used their Top Gun award winner. Of course, anybody that knows me knows I was in the Navy and really don't like the movie Top Gun.
No?
Oh, God, no. Listen, after you've worked life on an aircraft carrier, on a flight deck, listen, there ain't nothing that happens in that movie that is remotely real. So, I'm sorry. It might have sold a lot of people to get in the Navy, but for someone that says, like, oh, wait a minute here. So, there ain't no Tom Cruise hopping off this freaking plane. And you see, and seeing all these guys that, none of this stuff's going on. So,
no. So you didn't like the second one either?
Not really. No, my wife was more excited about it than I was. So
I thought it was entertaining. I thought both of them were entertaining. I saw
entertaining. I could use real no. So if you sell me on the real part, I can't deal with that. But the entertaining part, yeah, I could. So
Top Gun's not a documentary.
Well, that is true. Yeah, that is true. It is supposed to be for entertainment. But sometimes I'm just easily entertained. Fiction. If you ask my wife, she'll tell you that I'm not much of a fiction person, which must mean I don't have very much imagination, if you know what I'm saying.
Had the when you went in, had the big craze of buying those motorcycles died down for guys in the Navy?
Oh, yeah, the crotch rockets, yeah, pretty much. So,
Because you and I talked before. I was in went into basic in Orlando in the first part of '88,
yeah,
and no, it hadn't stopped
yeah,
yet. They were still buying them.
I don't understand it. So, but of course, there's a lot of Harley riders too down anymore. So, I mean, yeah, motorcycle crazes everywhere. So, I like motorcycles, but I don't trust all the other people on the road. So
That's a fair
that
statement.
I don't mean that to be mean. It's the other people, it's the textures, it's all the other stuff. And listen, I'm as guilty as anybody else of doing stupid stuff on the road. I'm not gonna sit there and tell anybody that I'm good, about being on the road. But at the same time, I'm like, you know, um, you know, that scares the heck out of me. I've seen too many people get hurt. I've seen too many people die. You have to, I mean, you always got to look out for everybody else, but if you're on a motorcycle, you got nothing to protect you. If you wear a helmet on your head, I'm sorry. In my mind, that's just not enough. So, but
Yeah.
that's me being me. So,
Well, that's why you drive a big giant truck.
that is true. That is true. And people do notice that for better for us. But
We've been seeing some warmer days. Are the AC calls coming?
I'm starting to. A lot of maintenance, a lot of replacement stuff we kind of got going on. Pretty excited with that. Got a lot of stuff going on inner office wise to be able to serve people more this year. You know, we've hired a new gal for the plumbing. Her name's Angela, and she worked for a prior company for 4 years answering the phones. So that's been a very positive. We also hired a gal by the name of Isabel. And I always screw up her name. I want to say Isabella, but it's Isabel. So, and she's going to work as a CSR on the HVAC side of things. We're working with Maddie, and then Jane kind of backs up both sides. And then, in this world of 2022, as far as answering the phones is critical. We are going to look at an AI option to help when we're really busy again, but the AI function has evolved a lot, and they do have a live component. So if you don't want to talk to a box or a computer, you can say, "Hey, I want to talk to a live person," and it will put you in with a live person to be able to have a conversation. Where when we tried it a year ago or a year and a half ago, we did not have that feature, so people get mad and hang up on it. The benefit of it is it can pick up the phone right away. We'll be able to schedule with it. So I guess I would say pre-schedule. We'll be able to get you on the schedule, and then our office will follow back up with actually scheduling. So what I'm hoping we'll have more calls. We won't miss out on opportunities. I really feel like it's going to help my office cows because when we get busy, our phones are crazy. I mean, just absolutely crazy. So instead of people wondering what the heck's going on, we'll have systems in place to make sure that if you do call or if you need something, we're going to get there and take care of you. So, and that's huge. That's a big thing we've been working on probably since last fall. It's finally coming to fruition. So I'm pretty happy about that.
We've been working here trying to get AI to do certain things, and I'm changing its name. It's not AI, it's AF. It's artificial frustration.
I like that. Artificial frustration.
Because I just keep training it to do what it is that I need to do, and then it reverts right back to doing the wrong thing.
Oh.
And it is frustrating.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So, no, and that's the thing. The good part is, and like I said, we all know that I have a love-hate relationship with my franchise. Sometimes I love them, sometimes I hate them, sometimes I love to hate them. So, it always depends on perspective. We'll call it for what it is. But I will say this: there's a couple of air serves, one down in Texas in particular, and then one out in Tennessee that has spent a lot of time, a lot of leg work working with that piece. So hopefully we're not reinventing the wheel at this point. There's been other people that would rather bang their head against the wall versus me. So so that's kind of, that is, so just that is, that's been a positive, if you know what I'm saying, as far as having them help and go on and do what we call capacity scheduling too. So where we can even with that, we can link the right tech with the right type of repair. So really excited about what the possibility could do on the HVAC side. And once I feel like we got a good handle, we will implement that on the plumbing side too. But the HVAC, for what it is, there's a lot more people that I can tap into to help work with that. So at the end of the day, to me, it's about taking care of the customer, getting out and making sure, we're running the calls, sending the right people, doing the stuff that we need to do. And that's any customer service business. You want to be when they call, you want someone to pick up the phone and know that someone's going to be there to take care of your problem. So
Yeah, is that typically how you do things though? Is it's the HVAC kind of leads the way, and then when you got it dialed in, then you switch it over and implement it into the plumbing side?
that depends. On this case, yes. Usually it's the other way, actually. Because we can do more stuff on the plumbing side. I would say, well, I take the freedom I want to take. So if anybody thinks that I don't take the freedoms I want to, you would be sadly mistaken on that. But yeah, there is some more freedom. I mean, from a marketing perspective, we can do more on the marketing side with the HVAC than we can the plumbing side, if that, or with the plumbing side versus HVAC. We can create pieces, we can do individualized stuff more. Where with franchise, they got some pieces they want to throw in. They love to do this thing, like remind me that that AirServe is a neighborly company, and unless you are from somewhere else in the country that's ever dealt with neighborly, you don't care what neighborly is, and frankly, neither do I. So, which will make some people mad, but I mean that's just the reality. So, we don't have that on the plumbing side. On the HVAC side, it is a part, but realistically, I didn't sign up to be a neighborly heating and air conditioning when I signed a franchise agreement 17 years ago. I signed up as an air serv, and that's how I'm going to do business. So, and unless someone tells me or pays me a lot of money to do otherwise, that's, how it's going to be. So
you talk all the time. Usually every week we hear the love-hate relationship with the franchise, but there had to have been a reason why you got involved with it to begin with.
Well, okay, here's what I will tell you. So, the reason you joined and franchise is not all bad, okay? And if I'm being truly transparent, AirServe is a franchise, and don't all be panic when I say this there in AirServe world. In the last 3 years, they've came a long ways. They replaced the president in early 2022, and they've had a leadership change in the last 5 years. And so they've came a long ways. Thought processes, it used to be more of a mom and pop mentality as far as the franchise goes, because they were originally started by the Dwyer Group, the Dwyer family. Well, now it's corporate, and there's some stuff that sucks about being corporate, but there's also some things, if you're trying to run a business and drive a business, there's some certain benefits to being a corporate. And one of the things that happens is like spending money on marketing, and she'll get a big head when I say this, but there's a gal there by the name of Danielle Barrett that has been with them for about 3 years. She's out of Ohio. She went to Indiana, and she can't decide if she's an Indiana or Ohio State fan because their house is divided. But she's came in. She's really made some positive changes on marketing. They've actually got their stuff together now. I still use an outside vendor that I like a lot called Louvre Media. They do most of my stuff. They're out of Oregon. And if people are like, why Oregon? I says, well, because to work through my franchise is a very difficult process. Working through the franchise and the hoops, and just to be approved to post stuff out on the website. You just can't just show up one day and say, hi, I'm so-and-so with so-and-so media. You can't do it. There's a process. And if you work with them and you develop a relationship, markings came a long ways. When I joined it early on, it was for the business support, understanding financials and that kind of stuff. Now I'm at the other end, now I've been there long enough that, franchise consultants are asking me questions, but that's part of the reason eventually. Probably the coolest part about it, and Sometimes I take advantage of it. Sometimes I don't. Everybody knows where I stand on stuff. I know that surprises everybody, but yeah, yeah, yeah. The cool part about being a franchise that I do like is I do like, being able to meet with other business owners around the country. So whether you're in Des Moines or Miami, Florida, or wherever else, or California, or they got some overseas too. But you know, part of being in it, that's probably the biggest benefit is getting to talk to fellow owners, find out what they're doing. If they had, most of them have had similar problems that you've had, how have they handled it? Versus how you handle it. What kind of business do they run? Are they primarily residential? Are they more commercial? Are they kind of a mix like we are? How do they operate? And everybody has their own little mix that they do, and how they run their franchise. I mean, some people will follow to the letter whatever the franchise tells you. Now, me, that doesn't happen. I use stuff that I see that makes sense, and there's certain things, and then there's stuff that I say they're full of crap, and I do my own thing. But that's the beauty of being a business owner. I don't care if it's you can be an independent, but that's the beauty of being a. But at the end of the day, you want to be successful. You want to take care of your clients, but that's why you join a franchise, and it's so that would be the overall. I mean, there's negatives to it. There's sometimes restrictions. There's sometimes, of course, you got to pay royalties. I refer to royalties as taxes. Yeah, but if I'm being transparent about it, but that's part of owning a franchise, and but you get some cost benefit of analysis, and I would say it probably doesn't cost me any more, any less to be a franchise versus if I was a non-franchisor. And frankly, some of the issues that I've had really maybe don't directly have to do with the franchise, but just the local situation here versus at a corporate level, especially in the last 3 years. I really see, you know, the mindset is, what they want to do. It's about taking care of the customer, getting more homes, making sure we're building long-term relationships. And I'm more motivated to do that than ever. And you're sitting there thinking, well, I'm 53. I've done this for 17 years. Yeah, I'm more motivated to do it than ever, especially the plumbing side. It's like, okay, I want to take this to, take our services and offer to more people and make sure we're treat customers right, treat customers with respect, give them what I can see, a good product, at a fair, at a fair price. Listen, we're not always going to be the cheapest. I'm not there. I want to have something that works well for the customer. And, I go with the tomato can theory when it comes to a store. I don't want to have them throw a tomato can at me at Hy-Vee or Fairway or whatever, Walmart, whatever store that is, because they felt like I've done them wrong. But, and, as we continue to grow and do things, I get less involved sometimes, but, I've got no problem if a customer comes up and talks to me about, hey, Justin did something or Kelly did something or whatever. I want to be able to have them dialogue and have them conversations, and that's part of being the business owner. I enjoy talking to people, so.
Yeah, you do, and you're pretty good at it.
Yeah.
And you're also pretty good at just being you, and
Yeah.
I think that's what people respond to.
Yeah.
They don't wonder. I don't wonder.
No.
When you walk in, whether it's here in the studios or I walk into your shop or whatever, I don't ever have to wonder about, is Travis being genuine?
Oh yeah, there you go.
Because Travis is being genuine.
Oh yeah.
If you're upset about something, it's going to be real easy to see.
Yeah. When you see the line on the forehead and my eyes turn black, you'll know. It's like, okay, Travis not happy. No, I mean, I try not to be that way. One of the things I have to be careful sometimes, you get so caught up in the negative. The other thing is trying to be positive. We got guys that, all my people, all my gals in the office, I say all my guys in the field work hard. I wish we did have a couple female technicians to be transparent with you. But all of them work hard. All of them, bust their tail for us and for our customers. Are they all perfect? No. I got Nebraska fans that work for me, so they're not all perfect. So but
Well, after last week,
yeah, we won't talk about that yet. But but no, in all seriousness, they all bust their tail and they work hard for me. And sometimes you get so caught up in the negative that you got to remember to be positive. About certain things. Even in a bad situation. You know, well, okay, here's the bad. Well, here's the positive out of it. Try to make the best of an imperfect situation. So, because even the best situation, well, maybe I could have done this better, done that better. So, and if you're always trying to improve stuff, I think that's healthy to a business as long as it doesn't get to a point to where it becomes negative because you're trying to micromanage.
That makes sense. All right. So, getting to the important stuff.
Yes.
Who has the best fried chicken in Council Bluffs?
Oh, boy, fried chicken in Council Bluffs. I tell you, I'm not much of a chicken. I'm more of a beef eater, but chicken. I'll tell you who I really like is for their roasted chicken. Heath at third base
Yeah.
does a pretty freaking good job. Anywhere that carries Chester's chicken, because they serve gizzards too. I love fresh gizzards.
Oh, speaking of which,
Yeah.
all right, you're going to like this, and I'm giving a plug to a place over in Omaha. But have you ever eaten at Mouth of the South?
I've heard of it. I've not ate over there.
Okay, so we met some. You and I share some friends, Dave and Cassie.
Yeah.
And we met them for dinner.
Yeah.
And Cassie loves gizzards,
Yes.
and so she ordered them. I didn't know they could taste like that.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. But they have to be hot and fresh. If they're old and they're burnt, they're freaking terrible. It's like liver. If you burn liver or overcook it, it sucks. If you know how to cook it, it can be fantastic. But you got to know how to do it.
Well, we're just gonna separate
Yeah,
different
I
roads
know,
there, but the gizzards there were very good, and I was surprised. I figured I'm gonna try one, and yeah, this works.
Yeah. But no, if you had to pinpoint me, and I'm not a huge. Now, my wife really loves home team.
Okay.
My wife is a big home team. Now, the rest of my family cringes every time my wife mentions home team. So my kids especially, I don't really care.
I like it. I think they do a great job.
I do. I personally do too. But my kids, I think half the deal is because my wife wants to go there. which,
Probably.
yeah, which I can see that being my boys. But no, I like her chicken fried chicken. Listen, you can throw chicken fried steak in the garbage as far as I'm concerned. I'm a chicken fried chicken person. I love steak, but I don't want my steak chicken fried. Sorry, I'm going to call it for what it is. It's my deal. But they got pretty good chicken fried chicken. Heath does a lot of stuff with his broaster and his chicken up there as far as strictly what you. I don't. It isn't something where I go clamoring to eat chicken. But that, if you ask me.
Well, we met there one time and had chicken, so I know that you specifically said it because I think it was a Wednesday night when they were running the specials. So, so when we went there. So I'm looking at trying to find some place to do some catering for a small gathering that you may be invited to.
So you invite me to the after party. That's what it is. So.
But we're looking around at chicken options. So that was the point that I was going to ask because we're. A couple of Midwestern people, and we want the feel of a Midwestern picnic type of meal.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when it comes to steak, it all depends on what you want. It varies. There's a lot of people that make good steaks. I mean, everybody can bitch about a steak. You know what? I can make a pretty good steak at home too. And I got a couple freezers full of it. I probably shouldn't brag, but I just bought a beef. Yeah, I'm looking at buying into another business, and then I bought a beef from Gress's Locker out in Hancock. So, which Mark and his crew have always done me great. And there's other good lockers locally. So I want to, I'll anybody that wants to do anything local with beef or pork or or anything like that, that's not your grocery store. I'll support them because they're spending money with local farmers that are raising it. And
there's a lot of little towns around in the area that some of them have a grocery store. It's important that we support those and that we go there. And I'm not saying that you need to do 100% of your shopping there.
No.
But you need to do enough of your shopping there that you can keep that place open because once it leaves, now you don't have options.
When we lived in Shelby in 2002, we'd moved there, and they had a grocery store, and it was great. And then the school closed, and then they announced that the grocery store was closing. And after that, it wasn't out. It sucked not having a grocery store because you had to go to Avoca, Harlan, or Council Bluffs. Now every town's seems like they're putting a Dollar General in every town. So it's like, yeah. So
Like, I'm not approaching Dollar General for sponsorship money, so
no,
it's okay. I'm not a fan.
no,
And
because they don't keep the money local. I mean, that's the
right,
thing. You want to keep the money local. You want to keep the money in your backyard. If you're spending money in Council Bluffs or Trainer or Underwood, and it's a convenience part. I get it. Listen, it's 9 o'clock at night. You forgot the baby formula, and you need a thing of baby formula. You know what? You're gonna do what you have to do. It's Saturday. You run back to Walmart or Fairway or whatever. I get it, but that's also the point. Are they putting tax dollars back in your community? Yeah, the sales tax, but realistically, the money that's being made, it's not staying here. So, what does that do for the community? Where if you got the local guy, let's say Mulholland down in Malvern, you know what? I mean, his family's been in the community for over 100 years. So, you want to support that guy, especially when they rebuild after a fire, for gosh sakes. I mean, that's huge. So.
yeah, there's something about the smell in a small town grocery store that when you walk in there, it's just, all right, this is where I want to be. And I'm not sure what it is. It might be the meat locker.
Yeah,
Maybe that's
I
it.
think it's like what they do at casinos. They play the music, they play the ding and and they put Scentsy smoke. I was kidding that I was Scentsy. I wanted to get the smell old fart put in the office. So yeah, just to be a jerk because I could do that. So, but you want to casino, they put that smell, and that makes you want to go gamble. It's like. Number one, if you spill it on you, you can't get rid of it for about a week, and you smell it. You smell like you were in a house in Perry. I'll just leave it at that. But so it's just what it is. Maybe there's the small town grocery store smell. They put in a Scentsy deal in it for me. So or maybe it is just the chicken or the meat locker or whatever too. So
I'd go with that.
yeah.
All right.
So
Well, I've gotten some good information. I've can take it back to the appropriate decision makers to see which direction we can go with it.
So, and since winter sports season is pretty much over in the Midwest, I just want to say Iowa and Nebraska both had a good year in basketball. They both had a good year in wrestling. But, I hear they're going to open up at Five Guys in Lincoln.
Yeah?
Yeah, so to make sure that Fred Boyberg knows to count to 5.
There it is. There it is. That's the mayor of Ames you're talking about.
Yeah, well, evidently can't count to 5. Maybe they need to open to 5
okay.
guys.
Listen. All right. Hoiberg fell on the sword there.
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody screwed up because as soon as that came up, he instantly jumped in and he said, I'll handle this. That I'm the coach. It's on me.
Oh, yeah.
But somebody screwed up, and I don't think it was him.
No, he did. And, here's the deal. You know what? They made it so the first time I'd be there. If it's anybody but your arch nemesis, you feel good about that season. You don't feel good about how the ending is. But when you lose, you made the 6-6 Sweet 16 best year ever, and you lose to Iowa. And it was maybe an Iowa fan, But I mean, honestly, if it had been, the only team worse would have been Creighton. If it had been Creighton, I think they'd have been more pissed. But if it had been anybody but Iowa or Creighton, I think, okay, shoot happens, best season ever. But, now they're getting to hear about it at least once a year now. So.
Well, I had my own little dust up.
Oh, yeah, I heard
that night because I was meeting a friend of mine, old radio buddy, that he's a big Nebraska fan, and we decided we're going to go someplace, and we figured, okay, well, we'll get there by 6, tip off at 6:30, we'll be okay. That's a hard no. Every place we went was just jam-packed with people, and I had Iowa shirt, I had yellow Hawkeye cap on, and as I'm walking in, I have some woman yelling at me, "You're at the wrong bar, buddy." And I'm thinking, I'm here to spend money same as you. Yeah. And, to my knowledge, Ben's not putting me in the game. So, I really don't have a whole lot to say about this. And then I walked in and some kids just jumped all over me. They were probably in their early 20s. And
Hey, you know what? I bet you they're really quiet about 8:45 though.
Oh, well, we left
Oh, you
because there was
left.
no place to sit. They didn't drive me out because of what they were saying. I'd have stayed, but there was no place to sit. And we ended up at this small little dive bar place. And when I walked in, there's a table and about 4 or 5 guys around it, and one of them was wearing a Hawkeye shirt.
Oh, there you go.
And I went over and gave him one of those fist bumps, and I said, "If things turn south, you got my back." He said, "I got you, buddy." So,
There you go.
I knew that it was going to be all right. But it was, I don't get it. I understand the good nature stuff. You're good at that.
Oh,
Giving
yeah,
somebody
don't-
good natured hard time and stuff like that. There wasn't anything good natured about it. That was mean. What they were doing was mean. And that was my problem.
I'll tell you what. Actually, up till that about 2 minutes, it's probably one of the best back and forth basketball games I'd ever seen.
Yeah.
Really, between two teams are going at it and the way they shot the ball. And, Nebraska had the lead. It's kind of like, I'm sitting there watching a bar in Dallas, at a Hawkeye bar in Dallas, by the way. So, so it's about around 30 Hawkeye fans and 30, 40. And, watch the game. It's like, man, is Highway get over the hump? And then they got ahead, and then that happened. And it's like, after that happened, it's like the wheels fell off for Nebraska, which, if I'm being for 38 minutes, Nebraska outplayed Iowa in basketball, but it's the final 2.5 minutes. It's kind of like been Nebraska football the last few years. You play them good the first half, and then you fall apart in the second half. So it's a gift of shot. Of course, that keeps on giving.
That was my first time really being able to watch the Nebraska men's team play from front to back. And what I realized was that Hoiberg's kid, who plays for him, reminds me an awful lot of Bobby Hurley back in the late 80s and early 90s playing for Duke. Didn't have a lot of talent. He's just in there, and he's constantly being annoying.
Bobby Hurley, yeah.
Yeah, and that was Bobby Hurley, and that was Hoiberg playing for Nebraska. But
here's what I tell you. You live at Price Sanford. Of course, he played at Iowa last 2 years. His brother Peyton played at Iowa, and now he's over here in Nebraska. I know there's a family dynamic between the Hoibergs and the Sanfords, and that's why Price, probably the biggest reason Price ended up in Nebraska when Iowa decided to make a coaching change. And I'm gonna tell you what, Fred has figured out how to use Price, and Price is probably going to make a lot of money in the NBA. Just because, his shot, for him just to be able to take a ball pass and then one step and just put it up, I don't care who you are, that's pretty darn impressive, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, and Hoiberg is also really good at, and this goes back to his Iowa State days. Before NIL and before the transfer portal, he built those Iowa State teams by going to the junior colleges and getting all the best players.
Yeah.
That was all juniors and seniors coming in that were not freshmen and sophomores at Iowa State. And that was kind of a little of a one-off back then. He has since done that, playing the NIL game and playing the portal game, and he's really good at it. And he built a team that is – well, nothing like Nebraska's ever seen before.
Yeah, well, and good for them. And it took Fred a while, but I don't think this is a one and done deal by any stretch. Now, Now there was something one of the players went out and said, "Yeah, we're going to let this happen to Iowa again." And then, of course, me being I trolled a little bit and said, "Yeah, until you play Iowa again next year." And I had some lady go, "Would you stop trolling us?" And it's like, okay, you're on Twitter. Well, everybody troll. If you're on Twitter, you're like in the cesspool of You're just in the cesspool of it. So, but no, it was a fun game. Obviously, it's funner for Iowa, but we're playing with house money. We beat Florida. I never expected Iowa to make it to the Elite Eight. I didn't expect them to make it to Sweet 16. So when they played Nebraska, they're playing with house money, and when you're playing with house money, you can kind of play pretty loose. And if it would have been a team they hadn't played before, I'm not sure that Iowa wins that game. But since they'd played Nebraska as close as they did, you knew they had a shot going. The point spread was 2.5 points for the game.
Yeah.
Guess what? That's not squat. So, but
gave it a run and played a good first half against Illinois.
Absolutely.
But then that was the end of the dream.
Yep. Well, till next year. That's why that's why there's next year. So, but
Well, we have a football season before we get to
oh,
there.
don't
So.
worry. We got football. We got baseball. We got summertime. So the Cubs are 1-2. Unfortunately, the Yankees aren't going to go 100. 0 and 162, unfortunately. So, that's why I keep telling Steven in my office. So, but no, winter sports, it's always good. It's always good to have a little bit of banter. So.
Well, and always good when you stop up at the studios and we don't have to do one of these online. So appreciate that, man.
There you go. See, I got a face for radio. Just proved it.
Yep, there you go. This isn't radio. I'm out of that industry.
Yeah, there you go.
He's Travis. I'm Todd. This is Circle of Trades, and thanks for being a part of it. We'll be back with you very soon with another episode.
Take care.